step by step from scratch, we're gonna see how can we create an interactive dashboard in Excel with a lot of different features, such as the slicer options, where we can filter the entire dashboard. Also, we're gonna see how can we create the cards, a column chart, a data chart, and an area chart. And we're gonna see also how can we create pivot tables in Excel to help us create analysis in Excel in a faster way. Instead of using functions or formulas, we can use pivot tables. And I'm gonna show you the benefits of using pivot tables. And everything starts from a data set, a large data set. So let's find out how can we create this interactive dashboard in Excel step by step from scratch. Let's go. The first step is to have a data set. And you can download this Excel file, of course, for free. Just click in the link in the description down below. Now that the first step is done, we can move on to the step number 2, that is to check if all the values that we have here are with the correct format. I mean, I have a sales report and I have informations such as order ID, date, product name, brand name, and also quantity. Everything from the column A up to the column E, everything is correct. But if you pay attention here in the column F, G, H, I, and J, not all those numbers are correct, because when we are talking about price, money, we need to change the format of the number to the currency one. If I want to use, let's say, unit price, unit cost, and total cost as a currency, I need to change those numbers format. And also here in the margin, I'm talking about percentage. So I need to change those numbers format. Let's stick with first the values money. Okay, so column F, G, H, and I select everything here. And then I go to Home tab. I'm going to click here in this dollar sign, because that way I can change those values into the dollar currency. And I can also select here the column J, select everything. And then I go to Home tab and put everything here in this percentage style. Just click here and yeah, I'm done. The customer column is correct, and also the region is correct. So the second step is done. The third step is to transform the data set into a table before we create the pivot tables and the dashboard. So it means that I always need to create a table in Excel to create a dashboard. No, you don't need to create a table to create a dashboard, but the table has some benefits, such as whenever I input new rows to my data set, all those new values are going to be included automatically to my table. So it's a benefit. And another benefit, whenever I change and update any value that I have in the data set, it's much easier to update the dashboard with those new values. So those are two main benefits of using a table in Excel instead of just using the data set itself. And to create a table from the data set, I just need to basically click anywhere within the data that I have. And then I go to Insert, Table, and very important to be mindful is to check this checkbox right here. My table has headers. And then click OK, and we're done. So this is a table. And of course, you can also click here in the table design to change the colors and the design of our table. But I'm going to stick with the standard one. The third step now is done. The fourth step, we're going to create pivot tables in Excel. And of course, you don't need to create pivot tables in Excel to make dashboards, because Excel has a lot of different formulas and functions, such as equal sign, sumif function, or also equal sign unique function, that can help us a lot to create analysis in Excel, and those analyses can help us create the dashboard. But so why should I use a pivot table in Excel? Because the pivot table can make it easier. Let me ask you a question. What is the total sold? What is the total price sold? You can simply take the column G and add up all those values, and that's it. You have the answer. But now I'm gonna specify a little bit more. What is the total price sold per product? Okay, now it's a little bit more complicated to solve this problem. And I'm gonna specify a little bit more. What is the total price sold per product, per region, per month, let's say. So now it's kind of difficult to solve this question. This is why it's always good to use pivot tables in Excel to slice and dice the data, to reorganize a large data set. You can, of course, use functions, but I think the pivot tables are easier to use because it's faster. You just click, hold, and drag, and that's it. The analyses are done. So let's take a look here. To create the pivot table, I'm going to click in anywhere within the table that I already have. And then I'm going to go to Insert and then Pivot Table. Just click here. And you don't need to change anything here for now. Later on, we're going to change new worksheet to existing worksheet. But let's click here, new worksheet, and then OK. Now this is our new sheet, and here we have the pivot table. Let's make something here. I'm gonna take this sheet 1 right here, click, hold, and drag, and move it to the right. Just to make it maybe a little better, click, hold, and drag to the right, and then right click, and then rename. I'm gonna give it a name such as pivot tables. Enter, or analysis. It doesn't matter. You can use the name that you like the most. Here to the left, we have the pivot table itself, where we can see our analysis. And here to the right, we have the options that we can use to create our analysis. So let's say I want to know the total sold. I can take any option right here to use. And as I want to know the total sold, I can take the total price, click, hold, and drag up to the fields that I have here. And maybe we have a question or a problem. What are the fields that I need to use? I have filters, columns, rows, and values. If I want to see the value itself, the total sold, the total quantity sold, the whatever. If you want to see values, you can use the values field. So let's take here the total price, click, hold, and drag, and drop it here into the values field like this. Now we're gonna have a sum of the total price. And as you can check here in the pivot table, we actually have now analysis. That is the total sold, the total price sold, the addition of all those values that we have. I can specify it a little bit more. And let's say instead of only have the total price, I want to use each one of the rows that I have and transform it into a product. So each one of the products is going to be in a different row. I can use the rows fields. So I can take the product, click, hold, and drag into the rows like this. And as you can see, now each one of those products are in a different row. Creatine, omega-3, pre-workout, and on and on. And here we have the total price, the total sold for each one of the products, and also the grand total. That basically is the addition of all those previous values. And instead of using rows, you can also use columns. Let's say you want to see creatine, omega-3, pre-workout in each one of the different columns that you have. You can read it off the products from the rows. There's two different manners that we can do it. I can click in the products, just click, normal click, and then remove field. And then I can take it again here in the products, click, hold, and drag into the columns itself. And as you can see now, each one of the columns has a different product. Or I can click in the columns where I have the product option, click, hold, and drag into the rows. Or click in the rows and drag into the columns. And that way we can move the option around those fields that we have. Basically, this is how we can use pivot tables in Excel. And here we have our first analysis. Now let's create more analysis here with the help of pivot tables. I'm going to go back to the report, and then again, we're going to do the same step as before. Insert, pivot table, but at this time, I'm going to use the second option right here, existing worksheet. Click here, and then I'm going to click in this upper arrow. I'm going to go to my pivot tables, and I want to select maybe this cell right here to the side of the previews of the first pivot table that I have. And then I click OK. And now this is my second pivot table. Now I want to see all the regions that I have. So I can take here the region, click, hold, and drag into the rows field like this. And I want to see the total sold for each one of the regions. So I can take here the total price and drop here in the values. Now I have a different analysis. We can move on and create one more analysis. That is, let's go back to the report. And here I want to know the quantity sold. The quantity sold. Yeah, I can use the column E to help me create a new analysis. So insert, pivot table, and then existing worksheet, upper arrow. And this one I'm gonna move maybe right here to the right of the previous one. Okay, now we have three different pivot tables, and this third one right here, I want to see the quantity sold. So I can take the quantity and move it to the values. And instead of just only see that the total quantity sold, I want to specify it a little bit more. Maybe I can use, let's say, the total sold, the product that I sold the most, and the product that I sold the least. So I can take the product and drop here in the rows, like this. And now the last analysis that we can do here is just see the grand totals. So instead of have the grand totals like this into the pivot table itself, I want to separate those grand totals and create a new pivot table with those grand totals. Let's say the total sold, the total quantity sold, the average, the average margin, and also, okay, I think those three informations are good. So let me come back here to the report and then insert pivot table as we learned before, existing worksheet, upper arrow, and then go to the pivot tables, and I'm gonna click maybe here, down arrow, okay, and yeah, the fourth one, I want to have the total sold, and also the total quantity, and also the margin. But the problem here with the margin is I have the sum of the total price, the sum of the quantity, the sum of the margin. Maybe it's not make too much sense, because I think it's always good to have the average margin. What is the average? Because if I make an addition of all the margins that I have, the value here is not gonna look much useful for me. 1683 as the margin, as the percentage. I think it's making no sense. So I want to change, instead of using sum, I'm gonna click here and then I go to value field settings. That way I can change, instead of using sum, I can use either count or average or max or on and on. I'm gonna stick with average and I'm gonna click OK. And as you can see here, now the average of margin is equal to 0.61. So now it's much better. Before we move on to the dashboard, there's two more steps that we need to do here. The first one is to take all those numbers and I extract them up to the cells here above. Because as I want to create the rectangle-like shape to use as the cards to display the values, I can't do it using the values within the pivot table. So I need to extract them to any cell. So I want to take the cell here above, equal sign, the first thing that we need to do here, equal sign, and then I want to use the cell A18. That is the name of the cell. So A18, that is the column A and row 18, and then enter. Now I have also the value here above. Let me click in the down right corner of the cell and drag to the right. Click, hold, and drag to the right like this. As we saw in the beginning of the video, we're gonna have some buttons to click and filter the entire dashboard. And we need to create the slicers to be able to do it. I'm gonna click in any pivot table that I have, like this first one right here, and then I go to pivot table analyze, and then insert slicer. As the filter option, I can choose any value that I have here, but I'm gonna stick with region maybe. Let me check the checkbox, mark this option, and then I go to OK. Now I have here the slicer. But something I think that is very important, let me just change the second pivot table that I have. Instead of using as the rows the regions, I want to use the months, January, February, March, and on and on. So I want to click here, and then to the right, I'm gonna read it off the region, click, hold, and drag out. And I'm gonna take the date, click, hold, and drag it here to the rows. But instead of see all those dates like I have here, January 1st, January 2nd, and on, I just want to have the months. So let me take the days and read the day off, and also take the date and read the date off like this. And now we have a much better visualization. And I think we're done with the pivot tables. Now if I click here in the slicer that I have as the region, if I click in north, as you can see, the values in the first pivot table are automatically updated for me just to match the option that I selected here. If I select south or west or east, you can see that those values are being automatically updated. But something very important is I need to connect this slicer with all the pivot tables that we have. So I'm gonna right click here in the slicer, and then I go to report connections, and I want to choose everything. The second pivot table, the third one, the fourth one, and on, click OK. And yeah, now if I select any option right here, as you can see, all those values are going to be automatically updated for me. Okay, so the fourth step is done. Now we can move on to the fifth one, that is to create the dashboard itself. And I can start creating the dashboard, clicking here in this plus sign to add a new sheet. And then this new sheet, I'm gonna right click here and then go to rename. I'm gonna give it a name such as dashboard. Now this is the area that we're gonna create our dashboard. But before we start, let's click in the view tab and then grid lines, because I'm gonna read off this option. Now instead of have the grid lines separate the columns and the rows, we have a much more clean look. I can go back to the pivot tables itself, and here we can place all the charts that we're gonna use. Let's start with the first pivot table that I have to create the first chart. As the first chart, because we have as the rows the products and the total sold, maybe I can use a common one, that is the column chart. Insert charts, I can choose the column chart like this. Let me change here the title. This one is gonna be total sold per product. Okay, let me click, hold, and drag it just here a little bit down. The second chart that we can create here is to the second pivot table. In this one, we can use maybe an area chart or a line one. But let's click in insert, line chart, and I'm gonna stick with the area like this. And here we have as the title, the total sold per month. Okay. The third chart that I can create, as we have again the products, but this time the quantity sold, maybe we can compare those values. And to do it, I think it's a good idea to use a done chart, because with the done chart, we can see the larger the slice, the larger the value, and vice versa. So here we have the total quantity sold per product. And with the done chart, we can also see the percentage of those values. Now with all those charts created, let me close this right panel right here. Okay, I want to select the first chart, and then I'm gonna press and hold the Control key, press and hold, Control key, select the second chart, the third one, and also the slicer like this. I'm gonna right click in any chart, above any chart, right click, and then I go to cut like this. I can move to the dashboard, and here I can press the Control V to paste all those charts. Now we basically have the dashboard that we need to, all those informations that we need to create in the dashboard, but something is missing here. That is the rectangle-like shapes, or the cards that we're gonna use to bring the values, the total sold, the quantity sold, and on and on. And to create those cards, I want to use insert, shape, and then maybe a rectangle with rounded corners. Click, hold, and drag in the screen to make the size, the area of this rectangle. The first one, I think it's good. Maybe I'm gonna leave it that way. I can click in this yellowish circle and click, hold, and drag in to make the corners rounder, and also drag out to make it sharper. I'm gonna stick with maybe this option right here. Now let me click in the rectangle, and then in the formula bar, I can click within the formula bar, equal sign, and then I can go back to the pivot tables and select the first value that I have. I'm gonna press enter, and as you can see, now the value that I have on the other spreadsheet is appearing here for me. And if I change the value, such as, let's say, just an example, John, enter. If I come back to the dashboard, you can see that the value here also update for me. Let me press Ctrl Z to undo this action. And let's create more two rectangles, because I need to use more two. So select the first one, Ctrl C to copy, and then Ctrl V to paste. One more time, Ctrl V to paste again. Now the second rectangle, instead of using the pivot tables, cell A16, I'm going to use the cell to the right, the next cell, that is B16. Enter. And the third one is going to be C16. Enter. And yeah, that's it. Now let me click in this first rectangle, right click, and then I can go to Format Shape. And here I can create my own design, such as I can use Effects, Shadows, select the first option here in the shadows. I can also click in the Fill and Line, Fill, and select Gradient Fill or Solid Fill, and use a white color. And as the line, I can use a black one. But the width, I'm gonna use 0.5, like this. Let me close this panel, and I think we're good. And to make sure we can create the same design to all those rectangles, let me click in the first one, Home tab, and let me just increase first the size of the font. Maybe we can use 20, put everything in bold, and align horizontally and vertically the number that I have. And as this number is about, let's say, currency, we need to change this value. But here, as you can see, it's not where we can change. So we're gonna need to change the pivot table itself. So let me just increase a little bit more, such as 24, 28, I think it's good. Let me double click in the format painter, 1, 2, and then click in the second rectangle and in the third one like this. Now we're gonna go back here to the pivot table, and this first value is gonna be currency, like this. The second one is gonna be just a normal number, and the third one is gonna be percentage, like this. And or sorry, percentage. Yes. We can also increase the decimal places and let in with 2 decimal places. And if I came back to the dashboard, as you can see, now everything is correct. Let me place those rectangles maybe here to the right, like this, and this one right here. Okay, I think it's good. We can also create the titles, the headers for each one of the cards that we have. So let me click Insert, and then Text Box, and just place this text box within this first rectangle. And here I'm gonna have the total sold. Let me select everything within, and then increase to 14 maybe. Put everything in bold, and also click in Shape Format, read it off the shape outline, and read it off the background to make it transparent. And as you can see, now it's transparent. I can click in this first title that I have, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, move it to the right, and again Ctrl+V and move it to the right. If you have some difficulty to move it, you can use the arrow keys to move it more with more preciseness, like I'm doing here. Okay, so use the arrow keys. The second one is going to be margin. The third one is going to be total quantity sold. Yeah, I think I'm done. Now let's take the slicer and move it here to the left, make it a little bigger like this. And instead of use one row to each one of the options, I want to click here slicer, and I want to use 2 columns, and height, maybe I can use 07. Yeah, I think it's better, or 08, like this. Now with the charts, the area chart, I can move just underneath the slicer and bring it all the way to the right, like this. This column chart, I can just place in between the cards and the area chart. Of course, you can adjust the size of the charts, depends on the size of your computer screen. But I'm gonna let mine this way. I think it's a good layout for the dashboard. And let's start make some changes in the charts. So the area chart, I can click it in the chart, and then I can go to Design and choose another one, such as maybe style 10, or yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with the style number 10. But instead of using a blue background, let me right click here, Format Chart Area, and I can use as the area of the chart white color, and as the border I want to use no line. And as the chart itself, now we can't basically see anything. Let me click here in the Home tab, put everything in bold, and change the font color to a black one, like this. Let me also select, with the chart already selected, I go to Pivot Chart Analyze, Field Buttons, Hide All. That way we can read it off those gray buttons that we have, or the filters buttons. Now let me click within the chart. As you can see, now I select the area of the chart, and then I can go to Fill, Gradient Fill, and I can choose here a color. Maybe this yellow one, or let's say any colors that you have here is not that good, so you can create your own gradient. Let me click in the first one, and then I'm gonna read it off this option. I can only have 2, so the 2 is the minimum that I can have. Let me take the one here in to the right and go all the way to the left, and the one to the right is go all the way to the right. The one to the right, I can use a different color, such as more colors, and create my own. Or I can use here maybe this pink color, pinkish color, or this blue one. Maybe I can use a different one, such as, yes, I'm gonna stick with this pinkish color. Okay. And to the left, I want to use the same pinkish color, but in the left, I want to use the transparency as 100%. Now, as you can see, the darker color is underneath or below, and the lighter color is here above. I want to switch the positions. So as the angle, I want to use 180, because that way we can change, or actually, 270, like this. Yes, now we change the positions. And I can also adjust the gradient. As you can see, the chart is gonna change the colors. But I think this one is good. Let me close the fill and open borders. I want to choose solid line. And here I want to use the same pink as before, like this one. Let me read it off the legend that I have to the right, click and delete. And then I can close this right panel. And this is our area chart. I think it's pretty much good. Maybe it's not great, but okay, it's a good chart, right? We can see all the informations that we have and on and on. We can also click in the pivot tables and change those values and put everything into the currency mode or currency format, let's say. I can do the same thing here for the sum of total price, put everything in dollar, okay, and go back to the dashboard itself, and the chart is gonna automatically update the values. Let me click now in this column chart, right click, or before we do it, pivot chart, analyze, field buttons, hide all, okay. Let me read it off the values that I have here to the left, and also the legend to the right. And as you ain't got any more the values to the left, we need to input the values somewhere else. And I think a good place to put the values is above the column, the area of the chart. Let me click in the grid lines in the background and read it off them too. And with the chart selected, I can go to design, to the left, add chart element, data labels, outside and like this. Let me right click in the chart, and then I go to format chart area. And here I can choose, let's say, click in the columns, the blue ones, shadow, I'm going to choose the first option. And as the colors, or actually series options, I can change the gap width and make it the number a little bit, and decrease the number to make the columns a little bit thicker. Maybe I can use 70, like this, or I'm going to use 150. And here, in the fill and line, as the border, I'm gonna use solid line, and I want to choose a different option of blue, so more colors. And I'm gonna choose this one right here, okay? And as the width, I'm gonna make this outline very, very thick. So I'm gonna choose maybe 7 as the outline, because as you can see, as we are increasing the number of the thickness, we have this round corner. Now I'm going to click here, fill, solid fill, and choose the same blue as before. And we're basically done with this chart. I can also click to select the whole chart and then go to the home tab, put everything in bold, and I change the colors to black of the font. And also I can click in format, shape outline, no outline. Yeah. Now the last one is the done chart. Let me click in the chart, and then I can go to design, and then, pivot chart, analyze, field buttons, and hide all, like this. And now with the chart selected, I can go to design, here to the left, add chart element, data label, and show. And as you can see, now I have the number just above the slicers. If I double click in this number, 1, 2, I can change here and click in the label options and choose another type of values to display. Instead of have the values, I want to have the percentage. So I can select first the percentage and then read it off all those other options. Now I think we're done with the number, but let's click again in the slicers. Something that we can do here is change the angle of the first slicer, and we can rotate the donut. I want to use maybe this 25 as the angle. Donut explosion, we can separate the slicers. I always like to use 3%. Yeah, and the donut hole size I can use maybe 60%, like this. Now I can go to the effects, shadow, and use the first option. And also I can go to fill and line, border, no line. I think it's much better. And let's make the donut a little bit bigger. So I can click within here the hole that I have. And to increase the size, I just need to click in the circles, in the corners, click, hold, and drag out. Click, hold, and drag out here. And also click, hold, and drag out right here. Yeah, I think we're good. Let me click again in the whole chart, font, put everything in bold, and change the font color to black. Yeah, I think it's much better now. And maybe the last thing that I can do here is change the colors of the slicers. So let me click in the orange one first. As you can see, I'm not selecting all the slicers, but I'm just selecting a specific slicer, such as the orange one. And then I go to fill, and I want to use a different type of orange. So I want to use a custom color. Maybe this one, okay. As the blue, I want to use a different type of blue. Set this one right here. Okay. As the gray, I want to change the gray to a lighter one, maybe this one. As this darker blue, I want to use a greenish color, maybe this color. And as the yellow, I want to use a lighter yellow, set this one right here. Now we can close everything, and I think we almost done. Just read it off the outline, shape outline, no outline. Yeah, I think we almost done. Maybe you are missing the slicer, and I think the best way to change the design of the slicer is not through the slicer and select here a design. No, you just need to click to select a slicer style, but you can click here, new slicer style. That way you can create your own style. So you can give it a name. I'm gonna just leave this standard one here. I want to select the whole slicer, format, and as the font, I want to use something bigger to see better, maybe 16 or 18, everything in bold. And I think as the fill, I want to choose a white color, border, maybe none, and I think we're good. So let's click OK. And something that I can continue to change here is selected item with data. Format. So the item that I selected, as we can see here underneath those in Windows, we have the orange one. The orange one is the item that is selected. So I can have basically the fill as the fill, a different color. So more colors I can use here, or I can actually take a color that I already have, such as this blue one maybe. And as the font, I can use a white one. Okay. And I think we're good. Let's click OK and let's see what's gonna happen. Nothing happens, as you can see. So I need to click slicer again, down arrow, and select the custom one that I did, like this. Let me increase a little bit. Yeah. Something that I can do that I think it's gonna improve a lot, the slicer that I did here, is right click in the slicer, and then I can go to slicer settings. And here, display header. No, I don't want to see no header. And I also want to hide items with no data. And then I can click OK. And now it's much better. Whenever I click in any option, as you guys can see, the values are going to be highlighted with this bluish color. And also the entire dashboard is going to be automatically updated for us. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is how we can create a dashboard in Excel using a lot of different elements, such as charts, cards, and also a slicer. And if you have any questions or any suggestions to the next videos, let me know. Comment down below, and I see you tomorrow. As every day has a new video, I see you there.